Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to talk about the political organization of the Luo Nation. And the Luo Nation is a little bit complex. And I've always talked about African commonwealths before the colonial time, mostly being republics. Of course, there were monarchies. In Kenya in particular, of course, we can talk of the Wanga. We can talk of the sultanates at the coast, that is Zanzibar, Mombasa. But the rest of what we know today as Kenya was mostly republics, and it's the same case for very many parts of Africa, actually. Many societies in Africa before the arrival of the colonial powers were governed by republics. Now, here is something that I find very interesting when I try reading documents that talk about these commonwealths, is that seems like most scholars, for some reason, treat monarchies as superior to republics. Even African scholars, actually, people who are writing documents now, like in 2020s, they write it in such a way that they kind of like celebrate monarchies, and then they kind of like don't say much about republics. And it's the same case as I was trying to do my research on the organization, the political organization of the Luo Nation. Now, I need to clarify something that I've seen come up a lot in the comment section of the videos that I've done, and is the question of what is a republic and what is a monarchy, like especially what's a republic. Seems like most people are lost, and there are people who, to them, republic means the nations or the commonwealths that have emerged after colonial time, and specifically what the British and the French and the European powers in general created in Africa. To them, that's what a republic is. A republic is more about the political organization of a society. It has nothing to do whether there is a flag or whether there is an office or a road. No, it's about, because all people as humans, we thrive when we live together as a society. And there is nowhere in the world where you find humans living individuals. Of course, there will be a few outlaws here and there, but in general terms, we humans, we like or we thrive when we exist as a group. And so every group where you find people living together as a group, there is a contract. There is a social contract on how those people survive. That social contract can be written in a piece of paper as a constitution, or it can be just customs and traditions and, beliefs on how people should behave. That's still a contract, because as an individual, if you go outside that contract, then you are sent away, you are ignored, you are told you are no longer part of this society. So a republic is all about how a group of people organize themselves. There are groups of people that decide the way we are going to organize ourselves is to have a monarchy. One person at the top with all the powers, making all the decisions on our behalf, and whatever they say, that is it. That's a monarchy. And again, there's a little bit of misunderstanding that can occur, especially when we talk of a monarchy. Because often when you talk of a monarchy, we are thinking of where there is this family that rules, so that one member of the family dies, maybe the son take over, things like that. That's a monarchy, of course, the clear form of a monarchy. But a monarchy is generally a society where there is one person holding all the powers. And that means a dictatorship is a monarchy, actually, when you break it down, what form of government it is, because it is this one person at the top making all the decisions. It does not matter whether they came because they inherited the seat or they fought all the way and became the ruler. The fact of the matter is that they are the ones to make all decisions without maybe even seeking for advice from others. Or if they do seek for advice, it's not necessary that they have to abide by whatever advice they are given. Now, the Luo Nation had a very complex political organization before the arrival of the colonial powers, like most other, we can say, commonwealth in what we know today as Kenya. Now, the Luo Nation did not have one umbrella of a commonwealth. They were a nation, of course, because they shared the culture, the language, and the way of life. But when it came to the political organization, they did not have a centralized form of government. And they did not even have a one structure of government that we can say ruled all over the land. What they had is a confederation of different commonwealths. Now, the commonwealths of the Luo Nation were based on what we can call sub-tribes. And initially there were like 11 or 12 of them: Sakwa, Yimbo, Gem, Kano, Nyakach, Ugenya, Kajulu, Karachuonyo, Kabondo, Asembo, Uyoma. Yeah, those ones are like we can call the original, we can call them original commonwealths. And in the Luo nation, they were called Oganda. That's the name I could get. And if you think that's not the right name for it, you can tell me in the comment section what it is. But that's the name I found in some of the documents I was reading, that these commonwealths were called Oganda, and they were like 11 or 12 of them. And they were based on the larger clans. Each Oganda was a republic for the most part, but there is an exception. Most of them, we can say 11 or 10 of them were republics, but there are a few monarchies that emerged. Of course, there is the Luo nation, and then there is the Oganda, which is a republic. For the most part, it was a republic. And each republic had its own council of elders, and this was called the Jadong Pin. And these were the elder members of society who became part of that council of elders. And it also included diviners and rainmakers and medicine men. And it seems like in the Luo republics or commonwealths, they did not have a single high priest. They will have several people playing the roles of the high priest. And these people will become part of the Senate, as I would prefer calling it. That's what most documents will classify or will describe as the Council of Elders. Now, the Oganda had its own Senate, and the members of this Senate came from the different smaller units that were called the Gwenge, Jadongo Gwenge, which were units, of course, under the Oganda. And these units also had their own Council of Elders. And then these units were formed, under the units were now the clan units. And then under the clan units, there was something called the Libemni, Jadong Gweng, something of sort. And under that, there was the Jokakwaro. Now, the Jokakwaro was like people who shared a grandfather will form a unit called the Jokakwaro. And then, of course, now you have the family, Wondala. Now, that was how the structure of the political structure of the, we can say, of the republic most of the time was. It started with the family, and then the bigger family, and then it went to the Bembni, and then it went to the clan, and then it went to the Gwenge, and then it went to the Oganda. Now, as I've said, the Oganda had a senate. The Gwenge also had a senate of its own. It seems like the clans didn't have their own senates. Seems like each clan will produce an elder or a wise person who will go represent it in the Gwenge. And then the other units did not have council of elders, but they will have leaders. Now, there is this word that is often used, ruoth. Often it has come to be associated with something like chief. And it has the connotation of somebody who had a lot of power. But like in the most other republics, the Agikuyu Republic, the Kalenjin or Kipsigis Nandi republics, this is a description of the office that was made by the British. The ruoth before the colonial era and the ruoth during the colonial era seem like they were not the same thing. The ruoth before the colonial era, just like Modamaki among the Agikuyu, was more or less, we can say, a speaker of the Senate. And he oversaw the conversations that went on at the Senate. But now when the Europeans come, because they come from a monarchy system, they are looking for that one person who has the power. And maybe they ask around, so who is the top man here or woman? And they are told, what are you talking about? They're like, are you talking about the ruoth? Because he's the person who oversees the conversations at the Senate. And they took the ruoth and they treated them as the person with the powers. And over time, of course, they gave them powers, actually. And the ruoth became this powerful person, a chief. But they were not. They were just, we can say, Speaker of the Assembly or Speaker of the Senate for the most part. Now, of course, there is a little confusion that happens when you talk about the Luo nation. And that comes in the form of, because the Luo nation seems like political organization was so much based on family relationships and clans and things like that. But then you realize that the Luo people were also very accommodating, seems like. They were very accommodating of other people. And they didn't care really if you came into their organization or into their nation and you became part of it. And that's how you have people like the Suba who came in and became part of the society. And then the Suba kind of like formed their own, we can say, republic within the bigger nation of the Luo nation. So the Luo, we can say the Luo nation was not we can say entirely like as a one unit, a republic or a monarchy. It was a confederation of many republics, within it at least 10 of them. But then there was, at least at some point, when there was something like a monarchy. There's a time when Alego, the part known as Alego, kind of like came up with something that was close to a monarchy. It had very strong leaders. It's called Alego Koruoth. But that did not spread to the rest of the Luo Commonwealths, and the rest of the Luo Commonwealths, for the most part, remained to be republics. But now, here is why I'm calling it a confederation, because while each Uganda was an independent political unit running its own affairs, there were times when the different republics, maybe 2 or 3, or sometimes even the majority or all of them, will form alliances, especially when there were threats from outside, from other nations, from other people. Then these people will form alliances to bring together their strength and then to fight off that. But there was also interfighting between these different republics. It was common for them to fight one another for resources, for whatever disagreement that made them to fight. Yeah, so that is the complex political organization of the Luo nation. And as I've said, it was a confederation of mostly republics, but there were a few cases where there were monarchs. Those are my random thoughts.